In the cold, empty expanse of space, the Galactic Council ruled with an iron fist. For centuries, they had controlled countless worlds, keeping peace and order across the stars. The galaxy was a machine, a massive, endless system, and everything in it was categorized, labeled, and neatly put into its place. One planet, however, had always been seen as insignificant: Earth, a small blue dot in the far corner of the Milky Way. The humans living there were primitive, their technology little more than a whisper compared to the might of the Galactic Council. To the Council, Earth was nothing more than a forgotten relic, an unimportant speck that had barely survived its own history. But that was about to change. It all began when Zorak, the Council's leading scientist, stumbled upon a file buried deep within the archives. A forgotten file, hidden under layers of ancient codes and data that had been deemed too dangerous to explore. As the files unlocked, the words on his screen flickered, revealing a single line of text: true name. The moment Zorak accessed it, his eyes widened in disbelief. The data wasn't supposed to exist. The truth was buried for a reason, and now it was staring him in the face. The true name of Earth, the ancient, hidden truth, was nothing like what the Galactic Council had ever imagined. The file revealed the true history of the planet, not a place of peace, not a place of weakness. Earth was the birthplace of a forgotten power, a power that had once nearly wiped out the galaxy itself, a power that had slept for centuries. The forgotten world of extinction. The words echoed in Zorak's mind. He didn't understand. The Council had always believed Earth was a primitive, undeveloped world, one that could be ignored. But now the name suggested something far darker. The forgotten world of extinction wasn't just a name, it was a warning. The universe had forgotten Earth. It had been left behind. But in truth, Earth was the birthplace of beings who had faced death and conquered it. They had learned to survive through the worst wars, the greatest tragedies, and the most terrible plagues, only to rebuild again and again. Zorak stumbled back from his console, his breath shallow. He wasn't alone in the room. His assistant, Kira, stepped forward. "What did you find, Zorak?" "The data." "The forgotten world of extinction." His voice trembled as he repeated the words. Kira's eyes narrowed. "What does that mean?" Zorak could only shake his head. "It means Earth is more dangerous than we ever realized. The humans, they've survived everything, every war, every plague, every extinction." Kira's face turned pale. "How?" Zorak's voice was low, filled with dread. "Because they are the extinction. They destroy whatever threatens them and then they come back. They never stop." Kira swallowed hard. "We've made a mistake." The news spread quickly, reaching the highest levels of the Galactic Council. Within hours, the entire leadership was informed, their faces pale as they processed the information. The files had been clear. Earth wasn't just a forgotten world. It was the birthplace of a species that had never known defeat. The Council had always underestimated the humans. They'd seen them as weak, as primitive, but in truth, the humans were survivors. Commander Kalos stood in front of the Council's leaders, his mind racing. The report from Zorak had struck him like a blow. He couldn't believe it, but the evidence was irrefutable. "We've made a grave mistake," he said, his voice calm but heavy. "If Earth's true name is anything to go by, we've underestimated their power. We've underestimated them." A murmur ran through the room. The members of the Council exchanged uneasy glances. One of the members, a sharp-eyed Vornes, spoke up. "Are you suggesting that we have been wrong about Earth all along? That this planet, this primitive species, could be a threat to us?" Kalos nodded, his face grim. "Yes, and if we don't act now, we could be facing something we can't stop." The Council's fear was palpable. They had always believed themselves invincible. They had controlled planets, manipulated species, and crushed rebellions. But humanity wasn't like any other species they had encountered. Earth had been abandoned for a reason. The humans were left behind, but they had endured. And now, with their true power revealed, the galaxy was waking up to the fact that Earth could be the one force that could topple the entire galactic order. Back on Earth, Major Sarah Clayton stood on the roof of the Earth Defense Command building, looking up at the stars. She didn't know it yet, but the universe was about to shift. Her mind was heavy with the aftermath of a battle fought on Earth's soil. The Vorix had tried to invade, only to be repelled by the human forces. Yet Sarah knew that the fight was far from over. There were whispers of something greater, something darker on the horizon. But she had seen humanity's greatest weapon, its courage, and she knew that no matter what came next, the human race would find a way to survive. "Major, you need to see this." She turned to see Colonel Hicks, his face tight with urgency. "What is it, Colonel?" "We've detected a massive fleet, an unknown fleet, moving toward Earth." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. "From who?" "We don't know, but they're coming in fast." In the depths of space, the Galactic Council was preparing for war. Earth's true name had been uncovered and they feared the consequences of their discovery. But the humans, unaware of the danger approaching, stood strong, ready to face whatever challenge awaited them. The storm was coming, and no one could say who would survive. But one thing was clear: Earth was no longer a forgotten world. It was the galaxy's greatest threat and humanity's greatest strength. The sirens blared across Earth's military command centers, sending a wave of urgency through the ranks. Major Sarah Clayton was standing at the heart of Earth Defense Command when the first reports came in. Her breath caught in her throat as the radar readouts flickered. An enormous fleet, one that had never been seen before, was fast approaching Earth's orbit. The unknown ships were too numerous, too organized to be from any faction they'd encountered before. "Major Clayton," the voice of Colonel Hicks crackled through her comms, "we've just intercepted their transmission. It's from the Galactic Council." Sarah's stomach sank. She knew of the Council. They ruled the stars, controlling planets and species beyond Earth's wildest imagination. The humans had only begun to scratch the surface of space exploration, but the Galactic Council had been watching them for years, waiting, it seemed, for the right moment. "They know something we don't," she muttered, eyes narrowing. "Get me the latest reports. We need to prepare." Across the stars, aboard the flagship of the Galactic Fleet, Commander Callows stood before the Council, his hands trembling with anxiety. The discovery of Earth's true name had shaken him to his core. As the fleet's commander, Callows had seen countless battles, faced superior forces, and crushed enemies without hesitation. But Earth wasn't just another enemy. It was a force that defied logic. The true name of Earth had sent ripples of fear through his every thought. "Earth is not the backwater world we thought it was," Zorak, the lead scientist, said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Its inhabitants. They have a history of surviving the impossible. Every extinction event that could have wiped them out, they adapted, rebuilt, and survived. And now they're capable of reaching the stars." The council members exchanged nervous glances. Earth, with its primitive technology and fragile ecosystem, had always been considered a curiosity, a planet with no significant military power. But now they were learning that Earth's true history was far more dangerous. The humans were a species forged in adversity, with a will to survive that had led them to the brink of extinction and back. "We underestimated them," Callows muttered. "We must act before they realize the full scope of their power. The humans cannot be allowed to rise." Zorak's eyes widened with concern. "We can't just destroy them. They've already fought wars we've never dreamed of. If we push them too far, they might turn their survival instincts into weapons we cannot stop." Another council member, a tall, rigid figure from the Arcturian race, spoke. "We can contain them. We must show them their place in the galaxy. If we strike hard, they will fall in line. We must make an example of Earth." The tension in the room was palpable. Callows clenched his fists. "Prepare the fleet. We'll give them a warning, but we will not wait. The humans are too dangerous to be allowed to grow." Back on Earth, Major Clayton was assembling her team of elite soldiers, preparing them for whatever threat was coming from the stars. Her thoughts were racing, but her focus never wavered. The planet's survival depended on their readiness. Her squad stood at attention, eyes wide with concern. She could see the fear on their faces, but she knew they had no choice but to stand firm. "We don't know what's coming," Sarah said, her voice steady but full of resolve. "But what we do know is that we're Earth's last line of defense. We fight to survive. No matter what, we will protect this world." Colonel Hicks joined them, his face grim. "We've received intel from the fleet. The Galactic Council is coming and they're bringing their full force. But they don't know us. They don't know what Earth is capable of." Sarah's eyes flickered with determination. "Then we'll show them." The Galactic fleet arrived above Earth's atmosphere hours later, a terrifying wall of ships stretching across the sky. The fleet moved in perfect formation, a coordinated strike meant to intimidate. The ships, dark forms, blotted out the stars, and Earth's defense systems immediately went into full alert. Major Clayton's heart pounded in her chest as she watched the enemy ships approach. Her fingers hovered over the controls of the command console, ready to launch Earth's counterstrike. "Activate the global defense grid," she ordered. "Target their shields first. Give them a show they won't forget." The massive guns built into Earth cities fired with precision, sending blasts of energy into space, but the alien ships barely flinched. Their shields absorbed the blows with ease. The sheer size of the fleet made it impossible for Earth to have any hope of winning with sheer firepower. "Shields are holding," Hicks said, his voice tight, "but we're going to need more. They're not retreating." Sarah turned to face him, her face hard as steel. "We don't need them to retreat. We just need to make them understand what happens when they mess with Earth." Back on the Galactic flagship, Commander Kalos watched Earth's response with a mix of frustration and admiration. The humans were fighting back in ways he hadn't anticipated. Their resilience was unmatched. "Their response is stronger than I imagined," Zorak admitted, his voice tense. "They've activated planetary defenses and have engaged our fleet with precision, but we can still overwhelm them." "Not if they keep adapting," Kalos said, his eyes narrowing. "We need to strike hard and fast before they find a way to outsmart us." He turned to his crew. "Initiate the bombardment. Show them the price of defiance." Back on Earth, the first of the bombardment waves hit. Cities and landscapes exploded under the weight of the alien strikes, but even as parts of the world burned, humanity didn't falter. Sarah's voice rang out over the comms. "All units, prepare for close combat. We're going to board those ships and show the Galactic Council why Earth doesn't bow to anyone. Let's make them regret ever coming here." With that, Earth's forces began to push forward into the heart of the enemy fleet. They boarded the enemy ships, using their knowledge of the terrain to surprise the invaders. The humans fought with a raw, unyielding force, using their sheer determination to hold back an entire galactic force. The battle raged on. The Galactic fleet underestimated Earth, and now they were learning a terrible lesson. The humans weren't just fighting for survival, they were fighting for the future of their world. And that, it turned out, was something no alien force had ever accounted for. As Major Clayton led her squad through the wreckage of an enemy ship, her heart raced with adrenaline. "We won't stop," she said, her voice full of fire. "We won't let them take this world. Not today." The first strike from the Galactic fleet had only just begun, but humanity had already begun to turn the tide. The Council had no idea what they had just unleashed by underestimating Earth. And now, as the humans rose in defiance, the galaxy would soon understand the true meaning of Earth's name. The world that refused to die. The battlefield above Earth was a blur of destruction. Ships, once towering beacons of the Galactic Council's might, were now burning husks, trailing smoke as they fell toward the planet below. The sky was torn apart by blasts of energy and the roar of combat. Earth's military, though outnumbered and outgunned, fought with everything they had. Major Sarah Clayton's eyes were locked on the screen in front of her, watching as the alien ships faltered. Humanity's defenses, powered by sheer will and desperation, had given them an unexpected edge. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. The Galactic fleet was massive, and Earth's resources were dwindling by the hour. "Colonel, they're pushing back," Sarah said, her voice tight with both frustration and determination. Hicks stood by her side, his face grim as he analyzed the situation. "We can't hold out forever. We're hitting their shields hard, but they're adapting too quickly. We need more firepower, Sarah." "We don't have more," she said, her gaze unwavering as she watched the flashing red alerts. "We've only got one shot at this, Colonel. We take the fight to them. We board their ships and show them we won't back down." The command room was a flurry of activity. Soldiers were preparing for close combat, gathering weapons and equipment. Earth's elite forces, trained in urban warfare and hand-to-hand combat, were the last hope for a world on the brink of destruction. Their mission: to infiltrate the alien ships, plant explosives, and turn the tide of the war before Earth was completely overrun. Meanwhile, aboard the flagship of the Galactic fleet, Commander Kalos paced back and forth, his sharp eyes scanning the battlefield. The humans were proving more resilient than anticipated. The plan had been simple: bombard Earth from orbit, break their defenses, and invade. But the humans were unpredictable. They had begun boarding the fleet's ships, fighting back with unrelenting fury. Zorak, the fleet's chief scientist, stood at Kalos's side, watching the chaotic scene unfold. "They're using the terrain to their advantage," Zorak said, his voice tinged with disbelief. "We've never seen anything like it. They're adapting faster than we expected." Kalos clenched his fists. These humans, they were supposed to be nothing, a primitive species weak and easily controlled, but instead they're fighting. We've underestimated them at every turn. Zorak's eyes darted to the screen, where Earth's forces were making an unexpected push. "Their survival instincts are beyond anything we've encountered, but we can still crush them, Commander. Their ships are out of fuel, their resources stretched thin. We just need to strike harder, faster." Kalos nodded, but there was a hint of doubt in his eyes. The humans had shown something unexpected, a will to survive, and that made them dangerous. "Prepare the secondary fleet for the final strike. We hit them with everything we have. If they want to fight, we'll give them one they'll never forget." Back on Earth, Major Clayton and her team were preparing to board one of the Galactic warships. The mission was simple but deadly: infiltrate the flagship, plant explosives, and disable their command systems. The fate of the planet rested on their shoulders. "Everyone check your gear one last time," Sarah ordered, her voice sharp. "We don't have time for mistakes. We get in, we do the job, and we get out. Earth's future is in our hands." Her team, battle-hardened soldiers who had already fought through countless battles, nodded grimly. Each one of them knew the risks, but they also knew that giving up wasn't an option, not while Earth still had a chance to survive. As the shuttle doors closed, Sarah's mind raced. The Galactic fleet was too powerful for conventional tactics, but that didn't matter. The humans had learned long ago that when you're backed into a corner, you fight with everything you've got. And right now, they were fighting for the survival of their world. The shuttle shook violently as it entered the Galactic flagship's hangar bay. The landing was rough, but the team quickly disembarked, weapons raised. They had no time to waste. The ship was massive, and time was running out. The humans had only moments before the next wave of bombardments hit. "Move out," Sarah ordered, and her team split up, each soldier heading for their assigned targets. They moved with military precision, clearing hallways and taking out any alien soldiers they encountered. The aliens, despite their size and strength, were not prepared for the kind of guerrilla warfare the humans employed. The soldiers fought with a ferocity that only those who had been through the worst could understand. They didn't hesitate. They didn't question. They fought as though their very lives depended on it, because they did. In the heart of the flagship, Sarah reached the main control room. Her team had already planted explosives at key junctions throughout the ship. The clock was ticking. There was no turning back now. "Major, we're ready," said one of her soldiers, Sergeant Tomlinson, his voice steady despite the chaos. "The ship's command center is just ahead. We take it out and the fleet's coordinated attack will fall apart." Sarah nodded, her expression grim. "Let's move, we don't have much time." As they approached the control room, they encountered the last line of defense, an elite squad of galactic soldiers. The battle that ensued was brutal. The aliens were powerful, their weapons advanced, but the humans fought like lions. They were outnumbered, but their resolve was unbreakable. "Fall back," Sarah shouted. "We're not dying here." In a final, desperate push, Sarah led her team through the last wave of alien soldiers, pushing forward into the heart of the ship. The enemy was strong, but they were not used to facing humans who refused to give up, who fought not just for victory but for the survival of everything they held dear. As Sarah planted the final explosive in the control room, the sound of the countdown echoed in her ears. Her team had done its part. The Galactic fleet would no longer be able to coordinate their attacks. Earth had been given a fighting chance. Outside the flagship, the other galactic warships were already beginning to retreat. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were learning the hard way. "Mission complete, Major," Sergeant Tomlinson said, his voice full of pride. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "It's not over yet, but we've given Earth a fighting chance." As the countdown reached 0, the flagship erupted in a massive explosion. The ship, the symbol of the Galactic Council's power, was destroyed in an instant, but Sarah knew that this was just the beginning. The humans had shown they could stand against the most powerful forces in the galaxy, and the war was far from over. The explosion that rocked the Galactic flagship was only the beginning. Across Earth, humanity's fight for survival was intensifying. The Galactic fleet had underestimated Earth's resistance, and now they were facing the consequences. As the flagship fell, the remaining ships in the fleet faltered, their coordinated attack disrupted by the loss of their central command. But the enemy wasn't backing down. They were regrouping, preparing for a final, devastating strike. Major Sarah Clayton stood in the command center of Earth Defense Command, her eyes fixed on the screen. The battle had taken a toll on everyone, but there was no time for rest. The galactic forces had called in reinforcements, new, terrifying ships that were unlike anything Earth had seen before. "We've delayed them," Colonel Hicks said, his voice hoarse. "But they're not done. They've got more forces incoming." Sarah's fingers gripped the edge of the table. "We have to keep them back. Earth's survival depends on this fight. We can't let them destroy everything we've built." Her voice was steady, but inside she felt the weight of what was coming. The humans had already faced extinction before, but this was different. This wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a fight to prove to the galaxy that Earth would not be destroyed, not by anyone. Meanwhile, aboard the Galactic flagship's command center, Kalos stood before his war council, staring out at the vastness of space. The loss of the flagship had sent shockwaves through his fleet. He had expected a quick victory, but the humans had proven more resilient than he ever could have imagined. "The humans are not as weak as we thought," Kalos said, his voice laced with frustration. "Their will to survive is stronger than we anticipated, but they've made a grave mistake. We cannot allow this to continue. We will finish what we started." Zorek, the chief scientist, stood beside him, analyzing the data. "Their victory on the flagship was a fluke, Commander. We have far superior firepower. We can wipe them out, but we must strike hard and fast. The humans are resourceful. If we give them time, they will only grow stronger." The other council members nodded, their faces a mixture of anger and determination. Kalos clenched his fists. "Prepare the final assault. We end this now." Back on Earth, Sarah and her team were preparing for the next wave of attacks. Earth's forces had managed to stop the Galactic fleet's progress temporarily, but the odds were still stacked against them. The enemy was stronger, faster, and better equipped, but the humans had something the Galactic forces didn't: unyielding determination. Sarah looked at her team, her gaze meeting each soldier's eyes. "We don't have the luxury of waiting. The next wave is coming, and they won't stop until we're all gone. We have to take the fight to them. We need to infiltrate their command center and make sure they never get the chance to strike again." Tomlinson, one of her most trusted soldiers, stepped forward. "We'll need to get to their main fleet. Their command is still intact. If we can disable their control systems, they'll fall apart. It's our only chance." Sarah nodded, her resolve hardening. "We've fought this hard. We're not stopping now, for Earth, for everyone we've lost." The Galactic fleet's reinforcements arrived above Earth's atmosphere with terrifying speed. Massive ships, each larger than anything Earth had ever seen, hung ominously in the sky. Their sheer presence was enough to send a chill down anyone's spine. The battle was far from over, and this time it would be different. "Colonel, they've deployed the new fleet," one of the officers said, eyes wide with fear. "These ships are unlike anything we've faced. Their shields are impenetrable." "We can't let fear dictate our actions," Hicks replied, his voice firm. "We need a plan. We've faced worse before, and we can do it again." But deep down, Sarah knew the truth. This time the stakes were higher. If they couldn't find a way to disable the new fleet, humanity would be doomed. The final battle was about to begin. Earth's forces, though battered and exhausted, were ready. Sarah's team, accompanied by a squadron of elite soldiers, boarded their shuttle heading straight for the heart of the Galactic fleet. The mission was clear: disable the command center, destroy their ability to coordinate, and stop the threat before it could destroy Earth. As the shuttle approached the enemy ships, the crew prepared for the worst. The air inside the cabin was tense. Every soldier knew that this mission could be their last, but the will to survive, the drive to protect their home, burned brighter than any fear they felt. "Remember, we take them by surprise," Sarah said, her voice steady. "We've trained for this. Stick to the plan. We get in, plant the charges, and get out. And if we don't make it, remember, we're doing this for Earth." The shuttle shook as it entered the enemy ship's hangar bay. The doors closed behind them, sealing them inside. For a brief moment, there was only silence. Then the chaos began. They stormed through the halls, weapons blazing. Alien soldiers tried to counter their assault, but Earth's forces were relentless. Every soldier moved with purpose, fighting for their world. Sarah led the charge, her heart pounding but her mind clear. The final confrontation happened in the heart of the command center. The aliens were waiting for them, prepared for an invasion. But Earth's soldiers had something the Galactic forces couldn't understand: the drive to protect their home at all costs. The battle raged, fierce and unforgiving. The humans fought like lions, refusing to give up. With each blow, with each alien that fell, Sarah knew they were getting closer to victory. She could feel it. Earth's survival was within their grasp. After what felt like an eternity, Sarah stood over the command center's central console. She had reached the heart of the enemy's control systems. With a steady hand, she placed the final explosive charge. The countdown began. "Get to the shuttle, now," she shouted as her team ran toward the exit. The final seconds ticked by. The ship's control systems began to collapse, the explosions tearing through the heart of the Galactic fleet's infrastructure. The lights flickered, and the whole ship seemed to shudder. As Sarah and her team made their way back to the shuttle, the floor beneath them trembled. They were running out of time. The countdown was nearly finished. With one final leap, Sarah jumped into the shuttle. The doors closed just as the command center exploded behind them, sending shockwaves through the ship. Earth's forces watched as the Galactic fleet began to retreat. The once proud warships were losing power, falling apart under the weight of their own destruction. The humans had won. Against impossible odds, against the might of the Galactic Council, Earth had fought back, and Earth had survived. Major Clayton stood at the helm of her shuttle, looking down at the planet she had risked everything to protect. The battle was over, but the war for Earth's future had only just begun. The galaxy had learned the hard way. Humanity would never be defeated. Not today. Not ever. The dust had barely settled before the new wave of panic hit the Galactic Council. The loss of the flagship and the destruction of their central command sent shockwaves through the fleet, but the humans weren't finished yet. Earth had fought back, not just against invaders, but against the very belief that they were too weak to survive. Now, the Council knew that their war had just become personal. The galaxy's greatest power had underestimated humanity, and the consequences were unfolding in real time. Back on Earth, Major Sarah Clayton stood before a battered map of Earth's defense sectors. The battle had taken its toll, but there was no time to mourn. Her team had given everything to push back the Galactic Council, but the fight was far from over. The remaining enemy forces were regrouping, trying to regain their lost strength, and Earth's survival still hung in the balance. She wiped a streak of sweat from her forehead, her hands trembling, but her resolve never wavered. The room was tense, soldiers and commanders alike staring at her as though expecting her to say the impossible, that they could win this war. "We've taken out their flagship," Sarah said, her voice steady. "But they won't give up, not until we're gone. We need to strike first, hit them hard, and hit them now." Colonel Hicks, who had been standing beside her, nodded. "The Galactic Fleet is still overwhelming, Major. We can't let our guard down, but we've got something they don't have, a planet that won't quit. We can fight through anything." Sarah nodded. "We need to keep the pressure on them. If we can take out their communication relay, the rest of their fleet won't be able to coordinate. That's our window." A low murmur rippled through the room. It was a long shot, but it was their best shot. They would infiltrate one of the Council's remaining flagship ships and disable their systems. If they succeeded, it would shatter the Council's command structure. Meanwhile, the Galactic Fleet's command center was in chaos. Commander Callows paced back and forth, his mind racing. The humans had dealt them a severe blow, and the galaxy's greatest military power was reeling. Their flagship, the very symbol of their authority, was gone. The command systems they relied on had been ripped apart by a small, determined group of human soldiers. The loss of such an asset was more than just a tactical failure. It was a blow to the pride of the entire Galactic Council. "We cannot let this stand," Callows said, his voice hard with fury. "The humans may have won one battle, but the war isn't over. We will make them regret this." Zorak, the lead scientist, stood beside him, shaking his head. "We've underestimated them before, Commander. I don't think we can afford to do that again. The humans, they're not like anything we've encountered. Their adaptability, their resilience, it's beyond anything we could imagine." Callows turned sharply, his face flushed with anger. "Do not speak to me of their resilience. I know what they are capable of, and I'll make sure they pay the price for their defiance." "But Commander," Zorak said, his voice quieter, "what if they are the exception? What if—" "Enough," Callows barked, cutting him off. "Prepare the fleet for an all-out assault. This time we'll crush them completely. No mercy." Back on Earth, Sarah was preparing for the most dangerous mission yet. The galactic forces had been regrouping, but their communication had been severely crippled. Earth's military, though battered, was using this window of opportunity to launch a counteroffensive. But there was something bigger on the horizon, something that could turn the tide of the war. "We know where their central relay is," Sarah said to her team, her eyes sharp with determination. "If we destroy their communications, they'll be blind. This will be our chance to end this once and for all." Tomlinson, one of her most trusted soldiers, stepped forward. "We've trained for this, Major. We'll get in, do the job, and get out." Sarah's eyes lingered on her team. These soldiers were her family. They had fought together, bled together, and now they would be facing the most dangerous mission of their lives. But there was something more powerful than fear in the room, something more powerful than the overwhelming force of the enemy. "Don't forget why we're doing this," Sarah said, her voice fierce. "We're fighting for Earth, for our homes, for our families. We can't let them take this from us. We won't back down, not now, not ever." The team nodded, their faces set in grim determination. They knew the odds, but they also knew that Earth had never given up, and they weren't about to let it start now. The shuttle carrying Sarah and her squad blasted off from Earth's surface, cutting through the atmosphere at breakneck speed. As the stars appeared, the immense size of the galactic ships loomed ahead. The mission was simple: infiltrate the enemy's central relay, plant explosives, and sabotage their ability to communicate with the rest of their fleet. "Stay sharp," Sarah ordered as they neared the galactic ship. "We're not just fighting for survival anymore. We're fighting to show the galaxy who we are, what we are." Her squad's faces were set, each soldier determined. They had been through hell together, and they knew that failure wasn't an option. As the shuttle docked with the enemy ship, the team moved swiftly, using the shadows to avoid detection. They reached the command relay within minutes, cutting through the defenses with precision. But they were not alone. The galactic soldiers were closing in. The battle that followed was fierce. The alien forces, though technologically superior, could not match the raw determination of Earth's soldiers. Sarah's team fought with everything they had: no mercy, no hesitation. The blast of energy from alien weapons lit the hallway, but the humans pressed forward, pushing through with the fury of those who had nothing left to lose. "Explosives are in place," Tomlinson yelled, his voice strained. "We need to move." Just as the timer ticked down, the remaining galactic soldiers made their final charge. But Sarah's team held the line. The countdown hit 0 and the relay exploded, sending shockwaves through the ship. "Mission complete," Sarah said, her breath heavy, her voice cold with resolve. "Now we get out, let's finish this." As Earth's forces continued to press the galactic fleet, Sarah and her squad made their way back to the shuttle. The fight had taken its toll, but Earth had once again proven that nothing could break their will. The enemy forces were scattered, unable to coordinate, and the humans had seized their moment. Sarah looked back at the ship they had just sabotaged, her heart pounding with pride. Earth had won again, and for the first time she truly believed that humanity could stand against anything, no matter how overwhelming the odds. But as they headed back to Earth, Sarah knew the war was far from over. The Galactic Council would be back. They would regroup, rebuild, and come for Earth once again. But this time humanity would be ready. The stars outside Earth's atmosphere were eerily quiet, the silence before the storm. The galactic fleet had been broken. Its central command was in ruins, and the communications network had been shattered. But even as Earth's forces celebrated their hard-won victory, the air was thick with a sense of foreboding. The enemy might have been retreating, but Major Sarah Clayton knew that the fight was far from over. Sarah stood at the front of Earth Defense Command's operations room, staring at the massive holographic map of the galaxy. The lights flickered above her, casting long shadows over the room. The faces around her were a mixture of exhaustion and determination, the price of survival written on every soldier's face. "They're regrouping," Sarah said quietly, her voice cutting through the hushed conversation. "I've been in enough battles to know this is only temporary. The Council will come back with everything they've got, and we need to be ready." Colonel Hicks, who had fought by her side through every mission, stepped forward. "We've dealt them a serious blow, Major, but we all know this isn't over. They've underestimated us before, and now we've proven we can win." Sarah didn't reply immediately. Her eyes flicked to the map, focusing on the signals she knew too well. "They're not just regrouping, Hicks, they're calling in something worse." The air in the room seemed to grow heavier as the realization hit. The Vorx swarm, humanity's worst nightmare, was still out there. And it wasn't just a distant threat, it was heading straight for Earth. Far across the galaxy, the Galactic Council was in full emergency mode. Commander Kalos stood on the bridge of his command ship, his eyes burning with frustration. The loss of their flagship had been humiliating, but the humans had not won this war. Not yet. "They've cost us dearly," Kalos muttered to Zorak, his voice cold with fury. "We've lost ships, control of the battlefield, and the element of surprise, but they have no idea what's coming for them." Zorak looked over at him, his face pale with concern. "Commander, what exactly are we unleashing on them? The Voreks, are we sure this is the right approach?" Kalos turned sharply to Zorak. "The Voreks are the galaxy's most deadly weapon. When they strike, nothing survives, not even the humans. We unleash them and Earth's resistance will crumble." Zorak hesitated. "The Voreks have been dormant for centuries. There's no guarantee they'll follow our orders, and we've never used them on a planet that's actively fighting back." Kalos smirked, the cold glint of victory in his eyes. "Trust me, they'll follow. The swarm answers to one thing, hunger, and right now Earth is their prey." Back on Earth, Sarah and her team were racing against time. They had barely begun to recover from the last assault when a new wave of alarms sounded. The sound of urgency spread through the command center like wildfire. "Major Clayton," a voice from the communications team called out, "we've just intercepted a transmission. It's coming from a fleet of Vorex ships, at least 50 vessels. They're heading straight for us." Sarah's heart dropped. The Vorex, they were coming. She immediately turned to Hicks. "We don't have time to waste. Get the fleet ready. We need every gun, every ship, Earth, not falling today." The Vorex swarm appeared on the edge of Earth's orbit within hours. Their ships were grotesque, twisted things, biomechanical vessels, each one teeming with thousands of the parasitic creatures that made up their deadly army. The swarm had been dormant for centuries, but now it was awake, drawn to Earth's destruction like a predator to its prey. Sarah stood at the command console, her hand gripping the edge as she watched the swarm on the screen. The human fleet was outnumbered. There was no denying that. But Sarah had seen what humanity could do when pushed to the brink. She wasn't about to let Earth fall. Not now. Not ever. "Prepare to engage the enemy," she said, her voice firm. "We need to hit them first. Take out their smaller ships before they can deploy the full swarm." Hicks stepped forward, his face grim. "We don't have enough firepower, Sarah. The Vorex ships are built to withstand everything we have." Sarah's jaw tightened. "Then we fight smarter. We know their weaknesses. They rely on their swarm for strength. If we can hit their ship cores directly, we can disrupt the swarm's control. We've done this before." The battle began with a deafening roar as the first wave of Earth's defense ships launched into space. The Vorex didn't wait. They descended like a storm, hundreds of ships breaking through Earth's atmosphere. Their organic ships moved with terrifying speed, releasing thousands of Vorex larvae that began to flood the planet's surface. Earth's fleet fought back fiercely, their weapons unleashing torrents of fire. But every blast was met with resistance. The Vorex ships were unlike anything humanity had ever encountered, their shields impervious to most human weapons. Sarah watched as explosions erupted around the fleet. Earth's forces were struggling to hold their ground, their ships buckling under the onslaught. She knew they were outmatched in firepower, but she refused to give in. "We can't let them land," she shouted into the comms. "Keep the fight in space. We need to buy time for the ground forces to evacuate." The Vorex ships hovered over major cities, releasing swarms of larvae that quickly began to infect and overwhelm. The planet's defenses were faltering, but humanity was still fighting. Soldiers on the ground used every available weapon to keep the swarm at bay. Humanity's desperation fueled them as they fought with all the ferocity they could muster. Sarah knew Earth couldn't hold forever, but Earth wasn't just a planet. It was home, and the humans who lived there weren't ready to give it up. As the battle raged on, Sarah led a small strike team onto one of the Vorex command ships. The mission was dangerous, but it was their last hope. The plan was simple: infiltrate the Vorex ship, plant a virus into their central control system, and shut down their fleet from the inside. The team fought their way through the Vorex vessel, each corridor filled with the stench of alien death. The creatures attacked with ferocity, but the humans fought back with the desperation of a species that had never known how to lose. "We're almost there," Sarah shouted as they reached the heart of the ship. The core glowed ominously in front of them. "Plant the virus and we're done. Let's finish this." As the team planted the virus, an explosion rocked the ship. The Vorex forces were coming at them, overwhelming in numbers. But there was no turning back. The countdown to the virus ticking down was their only hope. "Get to the shuttle," Sarah yelled. "Now." They made it to the shuttle, the explosion from the ship's core lighting the sky behind them as they flew back toward Earth. Sarah looked out the window, knowing the battle wasn't won yet. The war had just entered a new phase. But humanity had proven one thing: they would never stop fighting. The sky over Earth was choked with smoke, the remnants of explosions still burning in the atmosphere. The battle had raged for days, and the planet had seen more destruction than ever before. Yet against all odds, humanity stood firm. The swarm was relentless, but the human spirit was something the Galactic Council, the Vorex, and even time itself couldn't crush. Major Sarah Clayton sat at the command center, staring at the holographic map of the battlefield. Her eyes were bloodshot from lack of sleep, but her mind was sharp. The Vorex had been disrupted, their fleet faltering. The virus planted inside their central control system had done its job, but the swarm was still relentless. Earth's forces were scattered, running low on resources, but they were still alive. And as long as they had breath in their lungs, they would fight. Sarah knew this was their last chance. If they didn't strike back now, Earth would fall. The planet wouldn't survive another wave of attack. "We can't wait any longer," Sarah said, her voice cutting through the tension in the room. "We need to take the fight to them. The swarm's control systems are weakening. This is our moment." Colonel Hicks, standing beside her, frowned. "It's a suicide mission, Major. We can't even scratch their ships. How are we supposed to take them out now?" Sarah's eyes flashed with resolve. "We've been underestimated from the start. The Vorex don't understand our will to survive. We do things their way now. We hit them with everything we have, with no mercy." Outside the command center, the remnants of Earth's forces were preparing for their final assault. The humans had faced more than their share of impossible odds. They had fought the Vorex, the Galactic Council, and now the very limits of their own strength. But Earth's soldiers weren't afraid. They had been pushed to the brink, but they wouldn't back down. Sarah's strike team was assembled, ready to infiltrate the final wave of Vorex ships. This time, they wouldn't be running. This time, they would finish the fight. "We're going to board their command ship and we're going to take it down," Sarah said, her voice firm. "We know their weaknesses and we've learned from our past mistakes. This time, we're not just surviving, we're winning." Her team, a group of the bravest soldiers Earth had ever known, nodded in agreement. Each one of them had seen the horrors of the battle, had lost friends, family, comrades, but they were still standing, and they would keep fighting. The shuttle doors slammed shut, and Sarah's team launched into the heart of the enemy fleet. They didn't know if they would survive this assault, but it didn't matter. They had a mission to complete. As they approached the Vorex flagship, Sarah's heart beat like a drum in her chest. The enormity of the task ahead hit her all at once, but she couldn't afford to hesitate. The fate of Earth rested on their shoulders. The shuttle docked with the enemy ship and the team disembarked. The hallways were dark, the air heavy with the scent of alien decay. They moved quickly, their weapons raised, their footsteps silent but sure. "We disable the core and plant the charges," Sarah ordered. "Stay focused, no mistakes." The team advanced, cutting down any Vorex soldiers that crossed their path. The Vorex were fierce, their bodies grotesque and terrifying, but humanity's soldiers were faster, sharper, and more determined. Sarah led the charge, her eyes locked on the central command room ahead. She could see the shadows moving inside, hear the faint hum of alien technology. They were getting closer, but time was running out. The Vorex ships were launching their final assault on Earth cities. "We're almost there," Tomlinson, one of her squad members, said, his voice tight with anticipation. "Just a little farther." Suddenly, the door to the command room slammed open. A massive Vorex warrior stood in the doorway, its eyes glowing with hunger. It let out a guttural roar and lunged at them. Sarah didn't hesitate. She fired first, her shot hitting the creature square in the chest, but it didn't go down. The Vorex surged forward, slamming into her with a force that sent her flying against the wall. Pain shot through her body, but she gritted her teeth and pushed through it. This wasn't the time to fall. Not now. "Get up," Hicks shouted, pulling Sarah back to her feet. "We've come too far to stop now." Sarah nodded, her face grim as she fired again. This time the Vorex warrior fell, its body crumpling to the ground. But more were coming. The swarm was closing in, and there was no time to waste. "Move, move," Sarah barked. The team pushed forward, their guns blazing as they fought their way into the command center. Inside the control room, the core of the Vorex fleet hummed with power. Sarah's team planted explosives around it, setting the charges with careful precision. The ship's central systems were already weakening, but they needed one final push to make sure the Vorex couldn't launch another attack. "We're running out of time," Tomlinson shouted. "The ships are closing in on Earth." Sarah took a deep breath, her mind focused. "We've got this. The charges are set. Get to the shuttle now." The team retreated, blasting their way through the Vorex forces. Each step felt heavier than the last, but they couldn't stop. Earth needed them, and they would give everything to make sure the Vorex never had the chance to destroy it again. Back on Earth, the last of the Vorex ships were falling from the sky, their control systems crashing as the virus Sarah's team had planted took full effect. The battle for Earth had reached its peak. The last assault had begun. Sarah's shuttle broke through the atmosphere, and the team watched as the Vorex flagship exploded in the distance. The sky was filled with fire and light, and the shockwave sent tremors through the planet. It was over, for now. Earth had won. Sarah collapsed into her seat, exhausted but triumphant. The mission had been a success. The swarm had been stopped, the fleet destroyed, and humanity had once again proven that it would not be erased from the stars. As the shuttle descended toward Earth's surface, Sarah looked out the window, watching the horizon as the first rays of sunlight touched the planet. It was a new day, a new beginning. And for the first time in a long while, Earth wasn't just surviving, it was thriving.